one thing is going to give you momentum. It's going to give you that feeling of self-worth. So that's the best thing that I could say on overwhelm. Another thing that I could say on overwhelm is that pay attention to what you're focusing on. Because people come to me a lot and they're like, oh, you're so confident and happy, Sean. I wish I was as confident and happy. Like I came out of the womb like this way. And I didn't. I wasn't much smaller, but, you know, it was not this amount of happiness and confidence. That took time. And it basically boils down to where you put in your focus. All right, here's the way to be miserable. You want the definition of miserable? There it is. Focus on what you don't have, don't want, and don't like. That's it. And then see me, and I can, you know, get paid money, and I can work you through that. Or you could just say, let's turn that upside down. So somebody's really astute. What's the opposite of what I just said? Raise your hand. Flip that one around.
Focus on what you have.
Focus on what you have.
Ooh, what you want.
What you want. And what you like.
What you like.
Yeah. So what are some other words? So focusing on what you have is what? Gratitude. Right? Focus on what you want. Oh, that's called vision and goals. Focus on what you like. That's excitement and joy. Right? So that's the biggest thing. When I'm miserable, it's because I'm focusing on what I don't have, don't like, don't want, all together usually at once, or I'm doing one of those things to the nth degree, and that's why I'm miserable in that moment. You can turn around that fast. So that's the overwhelm part. Now I want to get to some quick marketing things that really helped me, and the biggest thing, so let's talk about how I got on Jimmy Kimmel, how you can get major media. And you know, I've been a speaker now for 15 years, an author for, I don't know, let's say 5 years successfully, and a therapist for about 10. And in these years of being in business for myself, I've never received a paycheck from a normal 9-to-5 position. I've always had my own business since I was 17 years old, and I wouldn't do it any other way. And I'm pretty sure most people are either there in this room now or on your way to wanting that. Raise your hand if you agree that that's either where you are or where you want to be. Okay, cool. So what I've done is I've had to take risks to build my company. And I want you to write this down. There's two kinds of risks. Very simple. A lot of the stuff I'm going to tell you is common sense. But there's positive risks and there's negative risks. Freebasing, cocaine, which one is that?
Positive at the time.
I didn't say positive and negative were fun or not fun. I'm just saying, here's how you know when you're doing something, a negative risk. A negative risk is you may come out the other side alive, but you're taking a chance that your life is going to be worse off by taking that risk. Positive risk is interesting because you take a positive risk, you're not guaranteed of getting a positive response immediately. You may not make a bunch of money when you take a positive risk. You may not, you know, you take a positive risk by introducing yourself to somebody. They may not turn out to be the best of friends, but there's a higher chance that they could be a good person. So there's a lot of things in our life that we know a lot about the negative risks. You know, stay away from these activities, stay away from these substances, but we don't talk enough about what positive risks are. So I took a positive risk with this Jimmy Kimmel opportunity. This is a few years back. And I had an online magazine at the time called Inner Game Magazine. It was for men. And it was on, the subtitle was, Develop into the Man Women Want. And it was all about how to be more confident. And I just boiled down the best experts that I found out there that really understood how to be more confident as a man. Interviewed them and then put it together as an online product that I charged them monthly. It was a continuity program. So anyway, first opportunity, a continuity experience for me. And I got this dream one night that I needed to put together a 30-second commercial that was compelling, that made people uncomfortable, but they had to show it to their friends. And it was me calling men out for not being confident enough around women. And what I did is I got this quick little flash in my mind. I'll explain the commercial here quickly. The first part of the commercial was me in front of a tall building where I had an office at the time in Oak Brook, Illinois. And it was me saying, you know, when they said I would never get hired, being, you know, 3 feet tall in a wheelchair, no one would ever hire me for a job. So I started my own company. And then the camera zooms out and you see this big building behind me that gives that image of like, wow, does he own that building? what's that deal? So then immediately cuts to a close-up of me, and it says, they said I would be weak and frail my whole life, and then it zooms out, and it's me with my shirt off, and I have a six-pack from exercising and muscle definition. And I said, so I had to develop my own body. And then the last one, it's zoomed in, and it was me saying, they said that a woman would never be attracted to a little man in a wheelchair. And it zoomed out, and I was sitting on this girl's lap, and I said, and I leaned in, and I kissed the girl. And, it was shocking to people, because they're all like, the little man in the wheelchair just kissed somebody, right? I don't know if I should be appalled or, watch it in slow motion for private time, And so it zoomed out, and then after I started kissing the girl, I looked at the camera, and I said, so what are they saying about you? And the better question is, what are you doing about it? And and then boom, went right to the website, innergamemagazine.com. And, I knew it was ballsy, and I showed it to my friends. 50% of my friends said, do not put this out there. Do not put this out there. This is kind of offensive, it's gross, it's misleading people that you you own that company. Some people were saying that you're going to regret this, it's going to be out on the internet for the rest of your life, it's going to be spammed, And then the other were like, do it, you've got to get it out there. And I thought, wow, polarity is awesome. Because, what I've learned about media training is you always have to have an opinion. If you try to get on a radio show or a television show without an opinion, you will never get hired to come back. Because nobody wants somebody that everybody agrees with or that everybody disagrees with. So if you went out and said, I think all children should be killed, you're probably not going to get invited back. If you come out and say, hey, I think all children are great, you're not going to get hired back. Because we are all either agree or disagree with that first one or agree with the second one. If we say, you know what, I think most children are being lazy in society, and I blame parents. Now I got polarity. Because some people will be like, I'm a parent, you can't blame me. And the other people are like, yeah, it is the parents' fault, right? So you got polarity. So what I did is I then said, okay, now's the time to send it out. I sent it out to my little list. It was like 1,000-person list at the time. And I just built up through my normal website. It wasn't even the Inner Game website. And, it was out for 10 days. I think on YouTube it had about 50 hits in 10 days. I'm like, okay, this really didn't go anywhere. And then one night I was in bed, and I had like a little beeper when every time somebody would subscribe to my email list. And it went beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. And I thought, this has got to be broken, right? And it's like 1 in the morning, midnight or 1 a.m. I'm like, this is surely a mistake. So I called up my web guy, and I'm like, hey, the email server is not working or something. And then somebody started calling me and saying, turn on television, you're on Jimmy Kimmel right now. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm in my pajamas. I'm in my pajamas at my parents' house. What are you talking about, right? And they're like, no, dude, your commercial is on Jimmy Kimmel right now. So I turned on the television, sure enough, Jimmy Kimmel had a guy that was his comedian friend that emailed it over to him that morning and said, you've got to check out this video and have this guy on your show. So Jimmy put it on the air. All of a sudden, all these guys from around the world now are subscribing to this newsletter. And at the end of the segment, I'm watching this in my pajamas like, holy shit, is this really happening? And it comes on, he's like, and we're going to have this guy on the show next week. I'm like, no shit! I'm really going to be on the show. And so I'm like getting super excited. So then I'm like, I don't even, and I thought it was like a spoof maybe, and so then the next morning the producer's like, look, who was the guy, David Duchovny. David Duchovny just canceled on our show for Monday. Can we get you into his slot? And I'm like, I don't know, I don't know, right? So next thing I know, I'm being flown out to Hollywood because why? Because I took a positive risk on a simple little 30-second commercial on YouTube that had only 50 hits. Right? This is like rags to riches nonsense that doesn't even sound real, right? So then I get on the show. That morning I was on the Adam Carolla show. And they are asking me, like, so what age were you when you lost to virginity? Now, I've never been asked that on a radio. I don't know how to handle it. Like, so I'm, like, all scared because, like, I'm getting into the big time. Like, now the gloves are off, Sean's being interviewed by some heavy-hitting people. That night, I get on the show, and I had invited, Evan Pagan was there backstage. A whole bunch of my good friends were backstage, like, rooting me on. I get on the show, and they had planned this whole thing to make a spoof, a mockery of my product. Like, oh, you're going to teach men how to get rid of it. So we're going to put Jimmy Kimmel in a blonde wig and Johnny Knoxville. You guys know the guy from Jackass?
Yeah.
Johnny Knoxville was the other guest that night. And I was supposed to teach Johnny Knoxville how to get Jimmy Kimmel into bed. And I'm like, oh my God, they're not taking me seriously at all. This is going to go horrific. And they're like asking me, they're like, we need you to sign off on these pictures with these girls because we want to show that you get girls. I'm like, I'm not signing these waivers. And they wanted to mic my dad up in the audience. And I'm like, no. And when all of a sudden you're in a place where you're willing to say no to a great opportunity to keep your integrity, which even though I joke and make fun of Joe a lot because he's my good friend, like, Joe's ethical. And I think you know that by now. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do it this way under these terms. I said, I'm going on stage if we do it my way. And so the producer was this really nice lady. She comes over to me, she whispers in my ear, she goes, Sean, if you are interesting enough for the minute and a half that you're on, they won't have time to do the skit. So don't stop talking. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. So I'm standing behind the stage. There's no handicap ramp. My dad had to carry me like a little baby up these stairs. They had to move the wheelchair up there, and then they put you behind this door, and the band's playing, and I hadn't met Jimmy Kimmel because they had you meet him live. My heart is pounding. I'm like, what am I going to do for a minute and a half? They opened that door, and boom, a light switch went on, and that was my house. And for that minute and a half that I was on there, I was funny, but not funnier than him, because I didn't want to, like, upstage the guy. I was complimentary, and Johnny Knoxville keeps making fun of me during this segment. I'm thinking, God, I gotta disarm this guy, right? So I turned to him, and I say, hey, Johnny, I changed my opinion about you. And he's like, what are you talking about? Because I knew this guy, if I tried to outwit him, they're like, Joe and I can outwit each other because we're friends. This guy and I are not friends. If I tried to outwit him, it was going to look bad because I'm not the celebrity there. And so I thought, this guy probably never gets a compliment. He probably is not even, his brain's going to melt. He's going to be right here for me when I compliment him. I said, you know what, Johnny? I saw your movie, The Ringer, where you make fun of people with disabilities, but then at the end, you really show that we're no different than you. It really changed my opinion about you, and I really appreciate what you did for that movie. And he was just like, oh. And he sat like a little boy in the lotus pit. and I held the attention, and they never got to the wig, they never got to the skit. So the comment that I have here is, first, take positive risks. Try things in your business that 50% of your family and friends say, you are an idiot for doing this, and the other 50% say, this is amazing, you've got to do this. So that's one little element that I was going to say about this. And the other is, when the time comes and you are on the spot, whether that's with a client or a media opportunity, there's no need for you to shrivel going, oh, I've never been here. I had never been on national television at that time. I had never been on live television that time. I had never been flown, overnight to stay in a nice hotel, to be on this major network. I had never done any of that. But when I got on, I thought, this is supposed to be my moment. So write that down. When you get in that moment, that is your moment. You do not need it to feel like, oh, well, I need to be somebody else to handle this. No, you know it's your moment when you've been placed into it. So that's, okay, now onto the YouTube thing. So I created a video called The Dance Party. It's the most embarrassing video I've ever made, okay? My fiance Mindy, who's in the room right now, she loves to show everybody who meets her who her fiance is to this stupid video, and it makes me so embarrassed every time. But anyway, so it's this video where I would just do these blogs in my office back in Chicago where I would teach a little thing for 2 minutes, and then that would be the end of it. And I thought, you know what? Let me be real and authentic with people, and I'm going to tell them how I really stay happy during the day. I have these things called dance parties where I put on music and I dance by myself in my room, and it's just fun and goofy and stupid. Nobody's going to believe it, but I'm going to do it for the camera and show people what a dance video is, a dance party is. So as I'm filming this video, I'm thinking in my head, this is so stupid, this could go viral. And I even said on the video, out of all the things that I've done that have, really made a difference, this is probably the one that's going to go viral. And so Talman Knutson, who's a good friend of Joe's and mine, calls me up one day after I did that video. It went 8 months and only had about 50,000 views, which is a lot on YouTube for most people who are just getting into YouTube. But, 50,000 with only eight months wasn't that big. Then all of a sudden, Tony calls me up. He's like, dude, you need to prepare for tsunamis coming your way. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, your video got put on Break.com. And Break.com is where people who have no lives that want to go watch videos to make themselves laugh for 10 minutes go watch this, right? And my video somehow got onto Break.com. And in a period of the next 2 months, it went up almost over 1 million views. After being 8 months at only 50,000. And the reason why I share this with you is, again, I was taking a positive risk. I was doing something silly. I was a little embarrassed doing it. It wasn't vulgar offensive. It was still very presentable. My grandma could see it. I wasn't ashamed of it. But it was so radically out there. Joe and I are going to plan something soon that's going to be awesome. It's going to be called Awkward Moments with Dr. Sean. And Joe and I are going to put me in awkward places and videotape people interacting with me. So, like, we're going to just set me on bathroom stall counters, and I'm just going to hold the towel and be like, can I dry your hands, sir? And it's going to be this quick little awkward moment, and then I'm going to cut to, hey, do you really want to be awkward? You don't want to feel awkward. Let me teach you how not to be awkward. And then, boom, it's going to be these awkward moments with Dr. Sean. I guarantee it's going to go viral because, it's funny shit. So,
yeah, I cannot wait to prop you up on like a water cooler so
Yeah.
at an office and we'll be like,
better yet, we put a snorkel on, we put the in ankle and shit on, and right in the bag when you're going to get your water, it's like snorkeling in your water. Anyway, so the last thing, so we've got Jimmy Kimmel, YouTube, and the last one is friendship. And the last one, one of my friends, Dr. Paul Dombrowski says, he doesn't believe in the law of attraction. I don't know why, but he says he thinks that the law of attraction is friendship. And I can't disagree with that because everything great that's ever happened to me in my life came through a friend. And I want to tell you that if you are not where you want to be right now, it's because you don't have cool enough friends. Period. If you aren't in a great dating life, you're not hanging out with cool enough friends who are introducing you to the right people. If you're not where you want to be in your business, you're not getting business friends that are bringing value to your life. And if you're not in great shape, it's because your friends are always doing things that aren't healthy, and so therefore you're just following into what they're doing. You've heard that statement, you become like the 3 to 5 people you hang out with most. So underrated comment. But it's true. So I'm going to tell you because I knew that in all honesty, if I could continue to learn straight from the source and be right up the road, come here, learn from him, offer value to him and his groups, that like my life would get better and I would learn more in marketing. And I seen my other friends that moved closer to their mentors to learn about their concepts. And it really comes down to friendship. I can tell you that of my income last year, probably 60 to 70% of my income came through friends. People like Garrett Gunderson, Joe Polish, Michael Fishman, people that Joe has introduced me, Evans introduced me to. It comes down to getting to know the right people. And, you might say, well, how do I become friends with somebody? It comes down to bringing them value as opposed to asking them for value. So when I showed up in Joe's life, I was like, hey, what can I do to be of service to you? And Joe ended up interviewing me for his Genius Network, and it was like the coolest conversation that we've had.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it solidified our friendship, because he was like, wow, this guy is actually more than just awkward looking. He's like actually a very astute human being that I can learn from. And that's what you got to do, is you have to ask yourself, how do I get better mentors? Well, how can I bring these mentors value? So if you find out, even on a small scale, like if they like a specific kind of wine that may cost you like $100 to go get that bottle, you get them that bottle. Because even though they might have the money to get it, like it goes a long way that you researched the detail that was important to them. Or a charity. That's how Joe became friends with Richard Branson, basically, is how can I help your charity? So I think that friendship is crucial in marketing and growing your business. And, just tonight I was thinking, like, gosh, I really need to call up my friends more and say, what more value can I bring to your business this year? Because I know the law of reciprocity, he was joking yet also serious, that when you bring value, at some point a person's going to go, whoa, stop bringing me value, I need to bring you value. So those are the 3 quick ideas that I had. Was that valuable to you guys?
All right.